back together again, all at the same time. Good morning, everyone. See, I predict I'm going to knock that off. So we'll just take care of that right now. So this month we are talking about paradoxes. And I've been very excited. I love paradoxes. I love the idea of holding two opposing things in my mind as truth all at the same time. And so I've been very excited about this. So when I did the talk 2 weeks ago, it was kind of like, but I'm talking in 2 weeks. So thanks for having me back. And it's not like you can really get rid of me at this point either. So as I was preparing, as I was sitting down, well, actually before I was sitting down to start writing my notes, I opened up Facebook, and as the universe does, the first thing that came up for me was a friend's post that says, and perhaps the most beautiful paradox of all is how a human soul is heartbreakingly fragile and unbreakably strong at the same time. And that was credited to HD, so I'm not sure who that is. And then later in the day, as I was coming back to it, I checked Facebook again, and my sister had posted, "It is by going down into the abyss that we recover the treasures of life." And that's Joseph Campbell. So what is a paradox? Now, I often think of paradoxes and dichotomies as the same thing, and they are very related. Dichotomies are a division or contrast between two things that are represented as being opposed or entirely different. So we think of light and dark, day and night, up and down, science, mysticism. Paradox, the definition coming from the Greeks, is para, which is contrary to, and doxa, opinion. So the Greek's translation is contrary to opinion. And I really like that. The Latin, paradoxum, seemingly absurd, but really true. And then Brené Brown weighs in. Her definition of paradox is the appearance of contradiction between two related components. So a dichotomy becomes a paradox when we recognize that one of these apparently opposing things cannot exist without the other. There's a oneness. We can't see the stars in the daylight, and yet they're always there. I have an app on my my at-home phone that isn't really a phone anymore, and I can bring up the stars and the heavens, and I can look and see what's in the sky right now. I can look and see what's down below us in the other half of the world. It's really cool. But for us to look out right now, we can't see anything but the blue sky. And I watch a lot of Bob Ross. I've shared that before. When I can't sleep, I'll put him on, his gentle tapping of the brush. And he always says, don't kill the dark. You need the dark to see the light. I think of up and down, and when we're sitting here on a plane of gravity, up is up and down, but when we're in the water, when we're in space, not that I go to either of those places very often, but we start to get disoriented. Which way is up? Which way is down? It's all relative. I watch a lot of Star Trek and stuff like that. So when they have anti-gravity and they start floating around, top and bottom becomes meaningless. And the gap between science and mysticism, two opposing ideas 100 or 200 years ago, through quantum physics, are coming closer and closer as scientists are recognizing that everything is one, where they can, in observing something, they can change its action. And when two related molecules or particles on opposite, ends of the continent or the world, when something is done to one, instantaneously the other one responds the same. So they're discovering that there is this unity and connection that mystics have known for eons. So some common paradoxical sayings that we have in our society: you have to spend money to make money. right? And it brings to mind one of the stories in the Bible where Jesus is talking about the servants, and the master is going away for a little trip, and he hands one of his servants 5 bags of gold. Hands the second one. I'm saying gold. It's silver in the Bible, but we're going to go with gold today because that's just what comes out of my head. The second servant gets 2 bags of gold, and the third servant gets 1 bag of gold. And the master goes away on his little trip, and the first one invests it and gets twice the money back. The second one invests it, gets twice the money back. The third one, he's afraid of the wrath of his master, and so he hides it away. He puts it in savings, you know. He tucks it away to make sure it's safe. The master comes back and is like, so how'd it go? And the first guy's like, hey, you gave me 5, here's 10. And the master's like, awesome, you rock. Second one, same thing, you know. You gave me 2, here's 4. Awesome, that's so great. Third one, well, I was afraid of losing it, so here's your bag back. And he gets chastised, and it's like, no, that wasn't the point. So we have this story. You have to spend money to get money, and it's rewarded in the biblical texts. Another common phrase is you have to keep it, you have to give it away. And anyone who is a teacher or has taught anything, or even parents, I don't have kids, but I imagine this is true because parents are teachers, right? Anything that we teach deepens our own understanding of the subject matter. We have to understand it, know it, embody it even more to be able to teach it to someone. We have to give away our knowledge to keep it and deepen it. And whenever we're teaching anyone, whether it's our children or in a classroom, who are the students? They bring to the teacher such richness. I just did a affirmations class, and our discussions were just so fulfilling. I had such a good time because of the people who said yes to that class. God is consciousness and matter simultaneously. How can something be consciousness, airy-fairy, and matter? Well, for me, that's a healing of separation, that God is no longer out there somewhere, but it's also in here. That consciousness and matter, so consciousness is in a rock, or a tree, or a gazelle, or the lion that's hunting the gazelle. Consciousness is in you and me equally. Life, spirit, is everywhere, everyone present all the time right now. And Ernest Holmes writes in Living Without Fear, the riddle of the universe is a paradox. The question is its own answer. For the mind that asks the question is also the mind that answers. One of my favorites to meditate on is that eternal moment of now. Eternity, without beginning and without end. It just is infinite. And now, this finite moment, this one, this one, this one. This moment of now is moving through time and space, and yet this is the point that we reach and touch into that infinite space of eternity. We have jumbo shrimp. I'll let you figure that one out. So these sayings invite us to get out of our black and white, either or, good, bad ways of thinking about ourselves and the world. So our affirmation today, I embrace a paradox mindset in everything I do. But how do we do that? You know, it's a really nice thing to say, but it's like, well, okay, what? At least that was my response to this. It's like, oh, we got to talk about that. So again, apps on my phone. Several weeks ago, Insight Timer gives you little affirmations. Maria uses it, and it's a free app. It's awesome. It tracks your meditations, and they give you little sayings of the day. And recently there was Zen saying, the obstacle is the path. And anybody that was in the meditation with Tamara, I don't see her. I'm like, where'd she go? She actually talked about this in one of her readings. But I'm not going to go into that story because I don't want to go too long. The obstacle is the path. So this led me to thinking about parables and Zen koans. And of course, we're all familiar with parables. They're simple stories used to illustrate a moral or spiritual lesson, most often related to Master Teacher Jesus. And they always have a simple surface meaning. And then there's always a deeper meditative meaning. And one of the stories that comes to mind is the sower and the seeds. And we're all familiar with that story where the sower is Spirit, God, and the seed is the message or the teaching. And Jesus talks about the seed landing on the hard soil, and the birds come and pluck it up. And the rocky soil, where it gets some shallow roots, dries up and dies. The thorny soil, where it's choked out by the weeds and other thorny things. And the good soil that grows and thrives and produces a rich harvest. And the people that Jesus was talking to were farmers, and so they really understood the story on a surface level, and many people could hear it. But he often always said, let those with ears hear. At least that's how it's translated to us. And I think what he's really talking about is, let those that can understand the underlying meaning hear this deeper truth. Where the seeds on the hard path are that message that lands on the heart, that hard heart, that it's not accepted, it's not understood, it's like, yeah, okay, that's not for me. The rocky with the shallow roots, that is where people hear it, they're like, yeah, that's okay, that sounds good. And they move on there with their day, and then they forget about it, and they don't remember it at all. The thorny, choked out message is that message that lands in, when we go on a retreat or hear a particularly awesome message, and we're like, yes, I feel transformed, this is awesome. And we're like going about, and then Monday comes, and we go to work, and by Friday, we're back in front of the TV, clicking the remote, and we kind of forgot that awesome transformational feeling we had at the beginning of the week. That's that thorny soil. We're really enthusiastic. We have a memory about it. We're starting, we're trying to grow, but life happens to us and we just get called back into our routines. And then the good soil, where there's that rich harvest, where the week doesn't take away that awesome transformational feeling, and that instead of turning on the TV at night, we sit and meditate and we deepen it, whatever it is that we came home with, and then we share it with others. So parables are a great way to start thinking, opening our minds to that other truth, that deeper truth. And then koans, which is a Japanese word for a Chinese concept. I'm not going to go into that, but because of this, I bought a book this last week, John Tarrant's Bring Me the Rhinoceros and Other Zen Koans That Will Save Your Life. And he says, the goal of the Zen koan is enlightenment, which he says is a profound change of heart. And he says there's 7 things to notice about koans. First, koans show you that you can depend on creative moves. So they take you out of logic and move you into this creative space where anything can happen. 2, koans encourage doubt and curiosity. The obstacle is the path. Requires us to doubt what we initially think. Well, paths, they're clear. There's a destination. There's a path right up to you on Zoom. Hi. And it's a clear, obvious way. And then you come across the giant rock in the middle of the path. There's the obstacle, whatever it is. And okay, I will bring in Tamara's reading this morning. Because it was a giant rock called the Alps. When I believe she was talking about Napoleon when he was on his conquest, and there were some villages, and I was in meditation, so I don't remember the details, but they were sitting there, nobody's going to come and get us. We're safe tucked behind the Alps. And he's like, why don't we go through there? And he just walked in and took the village, and you can think whatever you want, but he did not allow that giant rock to become his obstacle. It was his path to his particular victory. And it's through those obstacles that we grow. When life is easy and we're just cruising along and nothing particular is happening, we can be happy and satisfied, but it's in the challenges that we really grow and that we're pushed into a space of changing what we might be doing or deepening our faith. Number 3, koans rely on uncertainty as a path to happiness. So just as obstacles are the path, so is uncertainty. When we head out into our lives with preconceived ideas about what's going to happen today, and then those things don't happen, like right now, I think I need a new battery. But my day, I have all these things planned, which now might be going to get a new battery. But if my car decides not to start, if I head out there going, okay, I'm going to do all these things, and now this thing happens and my whole day is ruined and I'm not happy anymore because now my day sucks. But if I go out into my day, yeah, I have a plan for my day, but with what is going to happen, with an excitement and a curiosity, then I get to show up, and whatever happens, I get to be present, which for me equates in the long run to being happy. Number 4, koans will undermine your reasons and your explanations. Similarly, when we have reasons for doing things like, I will do, and you can fill in the blank, so they will like me. We'll just go there. When we don't get that response that we expect, then as our reason for happiness, I'm going to do this, they're going to like me, I'll be happy. And when they don't do that part, their part in your little equation, then your happiness is now taken away. So when we're thinking about koans, it's going to take away, it's going to make us think differently. 5, koans lead you to see life as funny rather than tragic. Now the title of the book that I bought is somewhere in here. Oh, well, I told you already. But Bringing the Rhinoceros, right? And this is, I'm going to give you this koan. A master asks his assistant to bring him the rhinoceros fan. Now this rhinoceros fan is a gift that he was given many years ago. It's a fan. It's made out of rhinoceros hide. The assistant's like, well, I'm sorry, master, the fan is broken. And so the master replies, well, in that case, bring me the rhinoceros. Now the assistant's like, what? How do we get upset about, how do we lament? How do we, okay, now I'm no longer focused on the broken fan. Now it's like, wait, I have to go get a rhinoceros? And how is a rhinoceros going to serve the function of a fan? So it causes us to see things differently, find the humor in it. It invites us into some impossible thinkings. And I'm reminded of the quote from Alice in Wonderland with the Red Queen, who says, why, sometimes I've believed as many as 6 impossible things just before breakfast. So koans will change your idea of who you are, and this will require courage. So when I was a small child, I remember wondering what's on the other side of the edge of the universe. And this is a question that has stayed with me throughout my lifetime. Yes, that's the kind of kid I was, right? And when I sit and meditate on this, the universe is infinite, right? Imagining the edge of the universe in itself is a meditation. And then if there is an edge to the universe, what's on the other side of this infinite thing? It boggles my mind. And then what am I in relation to that? I've always loved, since I was a little kid, Horton Hears a Who, with that story of worlds within worlds, where Horton is saving the entire world that's on the head of a dandelion. I love the end of Men in Black, that first one, when after the whole movie saving the universe, that's in a marble on a cat's collar. In case you haven't seen it, sorry. It's old, you should by now. I love the ending when, other beings are playing with our universe, because I'm like, look, there's the other side of our universe. So I'm always looking for that. Finally, number 7, koans uncover a hidden kindness in life. So as with the parables, the koans are stories and ideas given by a master teacher to their students. They contain humor and challenge our limited way of thinking. Now, all the questions are treated with equal respect and thoughtfulness, with replies designed to bring the student to a deeper understanding of themselves. And at the root of the teaching is a loving kindness that is innate to our very being. So what are some famous koans? Well, we're all familiar with, we know the sound of 2 hands clapping. What's the sound of 1 hand clapping? And of course, my logical mind says, but it invites us into something deeper. Similarly, a tree falls in a forest, and if no one's there to hear it, does it make a sound? And my logical mind says, well, of course it does. There's air being displaced, it's hitting the ground, there's squirrels and critters that live in the trees, they're all going to hear the sound. But then it invites me deeper, and I think about the people on the other side of the planet that I don't have any direct knowledge, contact, experience with. Do they exist just because I'm not aware of them personally, because I'm not there? Just like I wasn't there to hear the sound of the tree? And each of us can have our own meditation about it. So one of the koans from the book is Xiaoshu's dog, is how it's commonly referred to. And someone asked Xiaoshu, does a dog have Buddha nature or not? Xiaoshu said, no. What do we do with that? Well, we can contemplate Buddha nature. Buddha nature is associated with enlightenment, awareness, peace, presence, non-attachment. We can contemplate nature. What is the nature of nature? It's a way of being, the natural world, being a part of. We can contemplate dog. And when I think about dog in relation to Buddha nature, dog has an awareness. My dog has an awareness. He is at peace. He is present. He reminds me what present time is. He is definitely part of nature in the natural world. And does dog represent just dogs? Or can dogs represent all animals, all life, even those rocks with consciousness? We can contemplate the no. No, dog does not have Buddha consciousness. Or anyone who's good at math or English, when you add 2 negatives together, what do they become? A positive. So that or not added to no becomes, yes, dog has Buddha consciousness. Or does it? We get caught in that circle that we get to contemplate. And in our society, we are so ingrained, and in our teaching, to yesing. I love Maria's term of yesing. We're so enculturated to say yes to what shows up. Yes, I say yes to my battery going dead. I say yes to whatever is in front of me. And we often have a hard time saying no. And sometimes no is the correct yes. No, I'm sorry, I don't have time for that. Can I help you later? No, I should not be jumping in and helping this person with whatever it is that they're dealing with. Maybe I need to wait until they ask. No. And in the book, there's pages about a woman who meditated on just the word no until it led her into realizations of nothing and her place in the universe. So these koans invite us into shifting our perspective, having new ways of looking at things. Carl Jung said, "The paradox is one of our most valued spiritual possessions. Only the paradox comes anywhere near to comprehending the fullness of life." So why do we need to embrace a paradox mindset in everything we do? Well, as Ernest, Albert Einstein famously said, and I'm probably going to get it wrong, but we're all familiar with we can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. Which leads us to Janusian thinking. Psychiatrist Albert Rothenberg coined the term Janusian thinking to describe this paradox mindset. Named for the Roman god Janus, who is the god of transitions, duality, time, beginnings and endings, gates, and doorways. Janusian thinking is the practice of actively conceiving and using multiple opposite or antithetical thoughts or constructions simultaneously to solve problems. And it suggests that we open ourselves to multiple possibilities and ways of thinking that we have not thought of before. And essentially, I see this as, brainstorming. Anybody that's been in a brainstorming session where, get a few people around a table and no idea is too outlandish. Everything gets put on the table, and we get to think about new ways of solving problems. And this is so important in our time because there are so many problems or opportunities to shift our world. So an example of this is, yes, Facebook again. One of my friends posted several weeks ago, and I went back and pulled it yesterday. And it's a story that starts, remember that CEO who took a pay cut so he could pay all his employees a minimum wage of $70,000 a year? Here's what happened next. So of course, when the CEO decides he's going to take a pay cut and pass it on to his employees, everyone said, oh my gosh, you're going to destroy your business. Business models, news, everybody was like, you are going to destroy your business. And anyone that's had a business knows that payroll is your largest chunk of expense, right? Everything else is nothing. The bookkeepers in the room are all nodding. So he's going to increase his payroll expense. And this is what happened. 6 years later, his revenue had tripled. His customer base had doubled. 70% of his employees had paid down their debt and purchased new homes, many of them for the first time. 401k contributions increased 155%. Turnover dropped in half. So directly defying common capitalistic business models, he increased his business, valuing his employees and empowering them, thinking outside the box, doing something not traditional. This is the way we've always done it. How many times have we heard that, right? Well, it's time that we do things differently. Because it's only when we think outside that box that we can come up with some new solutions to our old problems. And whether it's, what am I having for dinner out of my cupboard, to how do we feed those living with food insecurities? How do we address global warming, racism, equality, and equity? Healing our divided political climate, and creating a world that truly works for everyone. And what we've always believed and done is no longer really working. And we have to have a new thought. As today's quote says, we need to develop a good-natured flexibility. We need to hold our ideas loosely, being open to new ways of looking at things and new ways of thinking. It is in the question that the answer lies. Thank you. And so there's David. Go ahead and take this into prayer. If you like, you can gently close your eyes, take a deep breath, knowing that there is only one divine creative intelligence that is the very source of our being. This divine consciousness is expressing itself in, as, and through all of life. It is in the rocks and the trees and the sand and the ocean and every living being that occupies this space. It is expressing itself as me, as you, now. And so knowing that this divine creative intelligence is infinite in its very nature, I know that we are individuated channels of this infinite idea. And that as we open our minds to new ways of thinking, we open our minds and beingness to new ways of being. I know that we each become a fuller expression of this one. We become a fuller expression of the love that is the very center of our being. That love radiates out into the world, and we are called into what is ours to do. And each of us has a different calling, unique and perfect to each of us. That is why we've all had our own perfect divine path getting us to this eternal moment of now. And so as we are called into this new way of thinking, and as we explore the possibilities this month, as we look at paradoxes, we release that black and white, either or, this or that thinking, and we embrace the all, because that's all there is. I'm grateful for this teaching, I'm grateful for this opportunity, and I'm grateful for knowing that the law is always at work, and the law is love. So I release this word knowing it is so, and we anchor it by saying, and so it is.